Queen P.R, Krista B, those wrestling girls, TWG, Black Excellence, making it effortless. Podcast bringing up women in wrestling. Let's go.
Hey, what's up, everybody? It's your girls, those wrestling girls. It's your girl, Krista B.
And Queen P.R.
And we are back with another episode, with another interview, I should say. These interview series has been a lot of fun because we get to interview friends who become family within this wrestling community. And the one with Andreas did amazing. So thank you guys for tuning in and listening.
That was a good one.
Feedback. And thank you, Andreas, for being a part of that because you're just an amazing person. But when you think of Andreas, especially for me, for WrestleMania, when you think of Andreas, you also have to think about this next person we're about to interview because we kind of met them simultaneously, like in person at Mania, or maybe we met this person before, but it's like I saw one, I saw the other that entire weekend.
All in the same family.
Yeah, all in the same family. But before we introduce this person, we're gonna do a quick check-in. P, how you been? How's life?
Good. Overwhelmed, ready for the summer to be over because for once I lived it up, but now I'm tired. And I don't want to do shit until my birthday in January.
Oh yeah, that's not until November
it's
and then January.
It's so many things I'm gonna end up doing, but you know.
Yeah, you gotta do November and then January.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Definitely. But no, I hear you. Like I've literally, like one weekend, I literally stayed in the house an entire Saturday. Didn't leave at all. Literally slept all day, which was amazing.
Always needed.
Yeah, like it was amazing. I felt a little bit guilty for doing it, but I'm just like, listen.
It's because you're an adult. Adults can't nap guilt-free.
I know.
You was like, wait, should I be doing something? But I'm glad you got to rest. We need that shit.
Absolutely. Definitely need to rest. But yeah, I've been resting, trying to get back to what it is because I can't wait for November. Like I just cannot wait. I'm super, super excited.
I am too.
To celebrate 5 years. This journey has been amazing. It's been crazy. It's been up. It's been down. It's been everything that you can imagine and dream of. And, it's a lot. And it's brought us a lot of dope people.
It really has.
Speaking of dope people, one of the dopest people that I know is here with us today. So should we just bring him up?
Let's bring him up.
Let's bring up Mr. Cam Hawkins, aka Ceehawk on Twitter.
Hey, bro.
Hey.
Hi, guys. How is it going? How's everybody?
How are you?
I'm cool, man. I'm cool. When I'm not being a person on the internet, I'm a college advisor and classes are starting up next week. And so, the cycle continues, man. Just been really, really busy. It's been a very busy summer leading into a busy fall, but there are worse problems than being busy.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
1,000%.
And you definitely mentioned when you're not being a person on Twitter. I think that's how I got introduced to you through P because y'all two were having some type of banter on Twitter. Or something was said on those wrestling girls account. And she was just like, yo, have you seen this? And I'm just like, who is this person? Like, who is he? What is happening? And then I saw like you had this amazing following and you were so involved and immersed in this wrestling world. I'm just like, nah, we gotta know who Ceehawk is because if his Twitter page is hilarious and stuff like this, then the person behind the Twitter page has to have the same energy.
Yeah.
So explain to us, how did you get into wrestling?
I grew up on the East Coast. I'm a DMV kid. So my grandfather, my father, my uncle were super into wrestling. Like they used to watch, like I used to go to my dad's like every other Saturday. We watched WCW Saturday night and it would like lead right into the Braves game. And that was so cool. But then my parents got divorced when I was really, really young. I was like 5. So my mom is an airman in the Air Force. I thought he was in the military. He was rich. I just assumed it, right? Everybody's a GI Joe, right?
It would seem that way.
It would, yeah. It should be that way.
She had no money, so she had to get a second job. So she was working at the old USA Arena as an usher when she wasn't like, working in the military, so I used to go with her like to the building when she would usher during events. So like I saw like Hogan and Flair in the cage at a house show when I was a
Wow.
kid.
What the
Yeah,
fuck?
yeah,
That's
man.
amazing.
I've been stuck ever since. Both, my grandfather, father, uncle were into it. And then my mom, like, once she took me to the live show, I was like, no, I love this. Like, this is great. So I was always a fan since I was a little kid. And just like never stopped. I didn't stop middle school, high school, college. After college, I just kept going. It was what I liked, so I stuck with it.
Oh wait, I was gonna ask you, like, did you have that time when you took a break? But it's so you've seen a lot.
Yeah, man. The only
it.
breaks I took is when we couldn't afford cable. Like you gotta watch.
Is
I feel
that
like
part
that's
right
usually
there?
people's breaks.
Yeah, man, you got to watch like Shotgun Saturday Night or whatever to catch up on like what's going on. So, but like outside of that, nah, man, it was every Monday night, Raw, Nitro. I'm watching SmackDown, I'm watching Thunder, and especially like I stuck with WCW Saturday Night until it was done. That's my favorite show. I used to love that show because you got like more of the people you didn't see on TV, but you got like the wrestlers. It was great, man. WWF Superstars Saturday morning, like all of it. I watched all of it that I could for sure.
So do you think that what AEW is doing now with Collision on Saturdays is trying to be the equivalent to WCW on Saturday nights? Because I've never watched WCW like that. Like I knew who key people were: Sting, Goldberg, NWO, because they were originally in WWF at the time. So do you think that's what they're doing, AEW, comparing it to like WCW?
It's more like what they tried to do with Thunder when they first got their second show. Because early on, like Thunder was still like the top acts, right? But eventually, them guys are like, "Yo, you're not gonna get me to work 2 days. Like, I'm not gonna do it. I'm just working today." So it's more like that. I think I really like Collision in that, like, it's a much smaller cast. And so they really focus on a few key people. Of course, like I get to watch Rick tear it up every week, and it's like way more of him getting to be him, and so I'm really into it. I love FTR. It's in a way, yeah, it is like WCW Saturday Night, like with the feel of it, but they're really going for the feel of an A show, just with less people.
Okay.
I can see that.
I could see that as well, because I'm just like, when we were at that panel, P, and you remember when they asked us, do you think it's too much wrestling? And we were like, yeah, but then there's never too much because it gives everybody an option. To be honest, I forget that Collision comes on Saturdays because I'm usually never home on a Saturday. So I'm just like, what am I missing? But now I feel like Collision, from what I'm seeing, is like the CM Punk show. Is that true?
It is very much CM Punk and his band of friends. Like it really is like it's CM Punk, it's FTR, it's Joe. Like, and then it's they work to get longer women's matches, not necessarily more women's matches. But then you got Rick coming up, you got Powerhouse Hobbs coming up. And so, we first heard about this split literally like Mania weekend in LA, like talking about giving CM Punk his own show. And it very much feels like that. Like he is the focal point of the show, and the people who wrestle his style or have similar ideas about how the business should go do seem to be who's in the forefront. So yeah.
It's funny because the more you talk about it, and we were talking about like WCW back in the day, and how like some would say the issue with that was like too many of the wrestlers were involved in creative, and Eric Bischoff was their buddy. And I felt like AEW might have been taking that same route because you boast about wrestlers being involved in like ownership and stuff like that, but there's a reason why there needs to be someone in charge of the performers kind of thing. But it seems like Collision is the show where they're going to try to do it right, where it might be CM Punk and his friends, but we're going to just try to put on a really good show.
Yeah.
Because I do hear complaints that like AEW they're signing too much talent. So it's like, okay, well, now we have another show, and now we can actually give them the time that they need. So it makes me interested that they would be on a Saturday night, but also I think it's doing very well.
If I had to choose between the two shows, I would choose Collision because I feel like it's slowed down. Like I say, and I don't want people to take this as like an anti AEW thing, but like I complain every Monday about Raw being 3 hours. Yeah, I'm saying every Monday. I'm like, yo, this is too long. Like,
Yeah.
like
It
cut
felt
this.
long at one
You know,
point.
but there is this idea of it's more prominent amongst like Diva Stan Twitter, right? I'm not saying they're wrong. It's just an idea that's more like prevalent in that community where everybody deserves a turn with the title. Everybody deserves to be on TV, you know? And I'm like, do they? It's not saying nobody's bad, but I prefer a show that focuses on a few people. As opposed to we got to get 20 matches, we got to get everybody on the card. It's like, nah, let's have 4 or 5 matches. Let's have them go longer. Let's build story. Like I prefer that. So yeah, you're right in that. Like you get nervous knowing that Tony Khan is like such a fan. Like he's a fan before an owner. You know what I mean? So you do get nervous.
The nice word. You said fan.
Yeah,
I hear people saying that's so nice words about that.
I don't like when they call people like money marks and stuff. It's like we're all money marks for something. I'm a money mark for sneakers. You know what I'm saying? Like it's not an insult to me. I got the bread. I'm doing the thing I like. But yeah, I think I was one of those people I was nervous about like the idea of like we can't get these guys to get along, so let's give them both their own thing. I'm like, that's never worked in the history of anything.
Right.
But it's going okay.
I feel it's going to be a dark side episode really, really soon.
It's impossible. All good things come to an end, right?
Yeah.
Like it's in every situation professionally in any job, it just takes that one trigger. You just got to see that one person in the break room that one time who don't ever clean the microwave when they cook fish. And
true. That one right there. Yeah, that'll be the reason right there.
It's going to be really interesting to see what Collision is and how Tony Khan feels about Collision in February. Because y'all know, 3 weeks, that's Saturday Night Football coming back. You know what I'm saying? And like, it's, you get your LSUs, your Bamas, your Georgias, and it's going to take a hit. It is going to take a hit. So I don't know what their benchmark is for how many people they need to keep, but hopefully they keep them. Because again, like the acts that I like are prominent on that show, and I want to see it do well. But man, let that number dip, and we'll see how much in love he is.
So speaking of competing and like ratings and stuff like that, you lived through the Monday Night Wars, like actually flipping channels, and that is something that always fascinated me. Because I didn't watch WCW, so when I learned about it later on in life, I was like, oh my god, this is so cool. Like, what fascinated you most about it, like in hindsight, like having lived through it and having to actually like choose and which is the better show? Like, what, when you look back, what was the most fascinating part of living that?
The idea of Eric Bischoff sitting in his office and Vince sitting in his office while the other show is on, knowing they got a TV on the other show, trying to figure out what they can put on to make people change the channel. Like they use their word competition really loosely when they talk about like wrestling now, like, oh, Vince needs competition to stay motivated. It was different than competition. Like that was a real fight.
Like we're trying to keep our doors open type of competition.
It's amazing what people do like to survive. You know what I mean? That was a crazy time because, we got a cable box, but I'm so close to the TV. I'm like, button. You either on channel 31 or you on channel 25. I was going, boy. I was back and forth. Just great to see those minds work at the same time, knowing they were trying to one up each other. It was so fun. Like, now we're in the age of I can watch literally from my room. I could be watching 4 different shows at once. We could be doing this. I can have something on the iPad, something on my phone, something on the laptop. You know what I mean? So, they don't face those same problems now, but that was fun, man. Wondering what's on the other channel at all times. Knowing somebody's on commercials. So what are they going to do during commercial? It was great. It was a lot of fun. And, so that's like 96 to 2000. So I'm like 11 to 15, like right before I can start.
Nice.
You know what I mean? So like 11 to 15, I'm just at the crib. I'm watching hard. And yeah, it was so fun. It was so fun.
I love it.
That's amazing. And that idea, literally, when you was like the idea of having Vince in his office and Bishop in his office, I'm just like, okay, I can honestly see that because I'm just like, what we're really going through these creatives' minds when they're literally trying to one up. Because to find out that Monday Night Raw was taped before, they had the outcome and they knew that Mick Foley was gonna win, and they was like, right, just to put them on. That was like social media before social media.
It was. It really was. And I think that's the fascinating part about it. Was it all you had to watch TV? You had to. It was like appointment television. I'm curious, Cam. How do you feel about Dark Side of the Ring? So I know there's like a segment of wrestling Twitter that don't particularly like it because I think they like to think wrestling is all rainbows and butterflies and the most perfect thing. I know some people that, they don't tell the full story or they just want to bash certain wrestlers and stuff like that. How do you feel about the show coming out now? Because I do feel like it made WWE step up the realism in their docs. Because they realize, like, okay, y'all telling our stories, we might need to pull back the curtain a little bit further. Like, how do you feel about the documentary series?
So this is not East Coast or New York blasphemy, even though he's not from New York, but he was up there. So I'm not like the biggest J. Cole fan in the whole world, right? I think he's good. I don't listen to him all the time, but I think that the first time I was really like, oh, what Lights Please was, I thought that was so cold. But years later, the first time I was like, okay, I understand why he has the fan base he does, is when he came out with a lot with him and 21 Savage. It's like, this song is amazing.
That's the one J. Cole song.
Yeah, it's amazing. But the best part about that video was you got to see them like big, successful Black family having dinner at this table, but they would always cut to the problems these people were going through to make them real people. You know what I mean? Like, Dark Side of the Ring, when it's good, it's really, really good. Like the Marty Jannetty stuff, so much of that plays out for us in real time. I don't find it very interesting. Like the Doink the Clown stuff, I thought was good because I didn't know so much about that.
Right.
But I could also see somebody who was there in real time, like not be as interested. So I think that there are stories they're never going to get to tell because of contracts and stuff. But when it's good, it's really good. And I'm always for like, look, one of the earliest things I've dealt with, or I did with the Ringer, was when I talked to Jake Roberts. I've always loved Jake Roberts.
Me too.
Yeah. And
his
Scott
voice is just like the Barry White of wrestling.
Great.
Like, what is
Jake's
that?
great. Hit him with the DDT. But like Scott Hall is my all-time favorite wrestler. And so I'm a Black man of a certain age. I'm the grandson of sharecroppers. So like addiction is something I've dealt with like in my family. And so like I still very much care about the people who have done things that a lot of people would look down upon, but it does not make them any less real to me. So that's why like I love talking to Jake. I regret that I was not in the position I am while Scott Hall was still here to really get to talk about where he's been, what he's going through, and what got him kind of through that. So now, man, like it's important to me to understand why people are the way they are, what their totality is. So I like Dark Side of the Ring, man. I'm not like, you're not going to make me think bad of somebody because something came out in the documentary that I feel like is just a part of the human condition. And a lot of that is like, look, I'm not talking about no murders and nothing like that now.
Right.
That's different. But,
hypothetically.
But when we're talking about things like addiction, you know what I mean?
Right.
Stuff like that is like, okay, this is how the world works. And so I think that is important. It ain't all unicorns and rainbows, man. We all got our problems,
I like also being able to hear, like, I probably would have never known Junkyard Dog's story if it wasn't for Dark Side. And it frustrates me because I'm like, wait, he's like a multiple time champion in like other promotions, and he was a top guy. He's one of the first Black superstars in wrestling. And I was trying to find a photo of him holding a championship because he was a multiple time tag team champion and others, and I can't find one. And that just like bothered me so much. So when I see like Dark Side come out, and I'm like, okay, now people get to like kind of see who he is. And a lot of like, Black wrestlers that don't get that story. I hate that it's in the context of Dark Side of the Ring.
Yeah.
But it is good to hear these stories.
It is. It gives them, like you said, Cam. It gives them a human value. Like they're not just the superstars we see on TV. They are human. They go through real life things. Because, like P said, Junkyard Dog coming, like literally pulling out a crack pipe in the middle of
Jesus Christ.
a locker room and
Mhm.
literally taking a hit before going out in the ring, or him vomiting in his car while driving to go to his daughter's graduation, which he was late for, and then driving back and not making it. And then that's also a tragedy because his daughter also passed away, and that was his only child. So like they're together, and it's just like you don't really see that side of people.
Right.
So for those who don't like Dark Side, like get over it. Like people are human. Like,
or like don't watch it.
right.
Yeah.
Like
Don't watch. I mean,
Dark
that's a
Side for a
really good
reason.
thing to do, right? I love how I'm wrestling everything because I just like I'm taking notes and I couldn't help but put down a hypocrite because I feel like wrestling fans you can't not be almost in a way because I'm like I love the human side of the wrestlers and then I'm like I don't want to see Mark Calloway. I don't want to see Undertaker not be under like at the same time. I'm like, but wait, I kind of
I was
just
about to be
want
like, who's Mark Calloway? See?
right. And like I have this thing where I'm like, because I have friends that are like in the business now, like, and they tell me things about like wrestlers that I only know from TV. And I'm like, kayfabe, kayfabe, kayfabe. I don't need to know any of these things. But then at the same damn time, I want to know what, Jake Roberts went through and why, what inspired him to be able to kind of get to that character because of everything that he's been through. Like I love those stories as well. So it's so hard to like tread that line.
There's certain conversations I just stopped having on Twitter because like, a thing I've had to deal with is, Cam, where you work, you taking WWE money and, Vince X, Y, and Z. And I'm like, look, I have my feelings about Vince McMahon.
Right.
But like, again, we talk about compartmentalizing. Like, you gonna talk to me crazy on the internet, but you're not gonna talk to Kofi like that. Kofi love Vince. You know what I mean? Most of those guys, John Cena love Vince, and a lot of those guys do. And so, like, I had when I was leaving LA, I was at the airport and I see Pope. And he was like, "Damn, like, what's up?" We're talking because we had talked a little bit over the weekend. We sat there and talked for an hour about the Vince McMahon situation, and it was super eye-opening. And there's stuff about that like I can't share, right? But it's also like, again, you have every right to feel exactly how you feel. Right. It does not mean that I feel any different, but the idea that you would press me for not emoting in the same way that you do is very disingenuous. And I've seen who you cheer for and who you support and who you love. And you're ignoring a lot. And so I'm gonna leave you alone. You gotta leave me alone. Because it's like, look, we dealing with real people. And it's bigger than us. And none of this is an excuse for anybody's actions. What it's saying is, if you would talk to me like that about it, I want you to talk to everybody like that. If you're that confident, I'm not just the dude to beat on because you feel away. You know what I mean? So I took myself out of a lot of conversations and I sleep better because of it.
I'm glad. You do seem like a target. I don't know why. It's like certain people on Twitter where I'm just like, everyone talks shit. Like, why are certain people like always like come for you?
It's because you say it takes 10 years to become an overnight success, right? I think what happened in a lot of cases was everybody wants to be cool and they all think that they're one quote tweet away from being cool.
Yeah.
And so I think for a lot of people, I came out of nowhere. When, if you know me, like I've been doing this since like 2009, 2010, we got to experience it together. Like, shout out to my man Chris from Tiger Driver. That was kind of the moment, right? Where, we're on the panel at Comic-Con and I'm next to Kaz, and I've looked up to Kaz for years, and I'm like, hey, I'm Cam. I don't know if you remember meeting me. He's like, Cam, I know who you are. And then, you know, y'all are
such a Kaz response.
Exactly. Y'all are, you know, from where you from. So I always tell people the only reason I ever felt like I could podcast was because of Combat Jack. You gotta rest Combat Jack. That's what really got me into it. So when we're at the panel, one of the guys who comes is my man Matt Raz, who was the producer on that show. And like Matt knew who I was. You know what I'm saying? And then you know, we're doing the show, and then MJF comes up to me. You know, like it was like
wild.
The whole thing kind of snowballed to where I realized, you know, I had been making waves, and then, you know, to a lot of people that seemed artificial. It didn't seem authentic, and it's like, no, this has been what it is. And so, I think what happens is they think because you got it out of nowhere, they're supposed to get it out of nowhere, you know? And so they take shots and they say things and they expect you to be a certain way. And it's like, y'all, we could just have a conversation.
Right.
We could probably do some work together and I'll show some love. Like, ain't but like 2 or 3 people I've just decided I could not work with. And a lot of that was because they did something really, really personal to where it's like, okay, we can't come back from that. But I try to be cool with everybody, man. I try to kick it. And, you know, I got to be careful sometimes when I get going. But I think that a lot of people were not ready for like a black man to have the access that I do. And Kaz is way better than this because Kaz will literally just ignore people. He don't care. But they weren't ready for like a black man to have this amount of access. And it's, you find out who the white women are.
That part.
And boy,
that part
yes,
you do. That's who don't like me. And I'm like, yo, it's next level. And I think it really is just like, they're just not used to seeing that. Yeah, you know, they wasn't used to that. And they turn up in a way.
I'm like, because now I'm like really thinking back because I feel like the pandemic was also a really good time for wrestling. Like when I say good time, I mean that in like the most wildest way. But I feel like that's when I really started to get to see your profile and stuff like that, and it's crazy. It's like I'm like looking through your author page on the Ringer, and I'm finding out you're like a college advisor. I've met you like you're mad cool. Like I would say, you know, besties when we're in the same city. And I got to know you off of like milk jokes. Do you remember that era?
Do I remember that? Yeah, I remember.
I'm like, wait, we've come a long fucking way.
Yeah, man. We so it's funny, like those started. I was in my office and I don't know what I saw on Twitter. And it was something about Jordan Grace. And me and Jordan are cool. So like that's where the joke started. But what happened was that was before everything shut down, right? World shuts down, and all of a sudden, like the personalities are talking to the wrestlers way more because the wrestlers, and if you guys don't know this, you should know this, they see everything. They go to the gym, they go to their meetings, and they sit on Twitter all day and see what's going on, right?
That's true.
So what happened was when we got to Wale Mania in Dallas, I'm helping out Kaz and Shoemaker and Sparks. Like I'm basically door guy. I'm walking everybody in, bringing them in from the loading dock, make sure they got their shoes, like all that. Making sure they got a bottle if they need it. So I see Jordan and Gresham, right? Now I've talked to Jordan. I've never met Jordan.
Her husband?
Yeah, she's there with her husband. And you know, he about this wide, looking like Geo dude from Pokemon.
Like he eat the weights.
Rocked up. So I see them. And, you know, me being a man of a certain age, me being from the South, of course, I talked to him first. I said, hey, my name is Cam. Nice to meet you. I'm a big fan. Just shake his hand, right? Jordan looks at me. She puts her hand, I shake her hand. She says, I like the tweets. And we just start laughing, right? Because like it never came from a disrespectful place. Right. You know what I mean? And like, that's another thing. So you talk about you got to know me, like, and off of those jokes and stuff. You saw how people would attempt to make similar jokes and would go off the ledge.
1,000%.
You know? And like I've never been that dude because I'm again where I'm from, you know, everybody keep 5-6 guns in their house. You
That's
know,
that.
us
Yeah,
included
okay.
during that time. You know what I mean? So
Mhm.
you're not finna talk crazy about nobody, and you definitely not finna talk crazy about nobody's wife, and it just be
Right.
cool. So I
Right.
always live in fear of somebody really being in love with their wife.
Right.
You know, like they'll take it to another level. You leave it alone.
Mhm.
So, but yeah, I think what the pandemic was good for, the wrestling personalities really got to showcase who they were, and there wasn't a whole lot more going on. Like that's when me and Max became cool. Like just off of some, I see your tweets. That was funny what you said. You're cool. How long you been writing? And me and Max been cool ever since then. You know what I mean? It was I did Botchamania during the pandemic. And I was like,
Oh,
Botchamania? Like, yo, this is crazy. But yeah, it really was a time where all of the creators really got to showcase who they were. It worked out great for some people, worked out really bad for some people because they revealed a little too much.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was definitely a good time. But like you said, like you the conversation we had in January at the Royal Rumble is the conversation I've been having for the better part of a year, in that people thought I was funny, clever guy with good jokes. Not that I was guy who can write the coolest thing you may have heard about your favorite wrestler. Because you was like, no, Cam, like I didn't know you could do this. And I was like, no, like, and I didn't take it as disrespect. I was just like, no, like I know, like a lot of people like just didn't know. They weren't, you know, familiar. And it was a chance for me to finally put that 6-figure degree that my mama bothers me about all the time to use. And it's been good. It's been really cool. So yeah.
I do enjoy your articles. I do like, because you don't really get that a lot now in general, just in media, especially when it comes to wrestling.
Right. They're so unique and they stand out. It's not like the generic type of articles. And me as a writer myself, I try to put my personality into these articles so for them to stand out, for them to be like, oh, Krista B wrote that. I remember when she said this, that, and the third. So reading your articles, P and I have a kick, okay? Because it just be some things where I'm just be like, Cam really ain't have to write that. He ain't have to put that little piece in it. But it also makes it stand out because it's so good. So how did you get into writing for The Ringer? All the access that you have gained for Wale Mania, especially this year. Like I'll keep apologizing to you a million times a day for LA Wale Mania.
You was a little turned up. I understood though.
I was, but you know, like you just
we want things to go smooth.
Things.
Yeah, we want things to go smooth, and when they don't, you know, yeah.
And it wasn't you, like I said before, it was not you. It was what happened before. With the lady touching my hair, and it's like what, and like I want to throw my drink, but that's neither here or there. So I would definitely keep apologizing to you a million times a day. But how did you get into those positions and those spaces of, you know, being Cam, like the go-to Cam?
Yeah. So I started, you know, way back like in 2010. That's when I started reading Pro Wrestling Torch, and they had this show called the East Coast Cast. My man Travis Bryant and Barjay Purnell, and it was just two dudes from Philly talking about the week in wrestling for 3 hours. I thought it was the most genius thing I'd ever heard. Right. And at that time it was a call-in show. And so like I would call like, you know, every week, talk about it. And it got to the point where they were like, yo, like you should come on and co-host sometime. I was like, all right, cool. And so I started doing that. And so I become like a bit more intertwined like with Pro Wrestling Torch. My man Wade Keller, the owner, starts to like kind of notice my stuff. So he's like, yo, you should do like the Raw reviews, SmackDown reviews with me every now and again. So I'm like, all right, let's do it. And so I get on, you know, they like the points that I make. But what really happened for me, I was already blogging about like pop culture. And we would do is me, my man Quincy, and my man B Ray. And you know, as the blog started to really get going, that's when the Mike Brown shooting happened. And I did not want to write anymore. Like I didn't. I was like, yo, I couldn't, like my hands wouldn't sit still long enough for me to come up with a good thought. So that's when I really started getting into like my own podcast and heavy, doing the South Congress podcast with me and my best friend Peanut, like really on it. And so what I didn't realize, I don't think, I was really like developing like the actual conversation part of media, and it was going well. We were doing a lot. So during the pandemic, again, everybody's reading Twitter. We're all on Twitter all day. So what happened was, my man Kevin from Pro Wrestling Illustrated hit me up and was like, "Hey, like, would you like to write something for us?" And I was like, "Yeah, that sounds cool." And then my other homeboy Kevin from Fanside at DDT was like, "Hey, I'd love for you to write some stuff."
Shout out to the Kevins because they the plugs at this point,
Right?
Exactly, right. And so I think with the Torch, I wrote about Kofi Kingston challenging Daniel Bryan for the title. And the point I was trying to get across was, Kofi was different than Rock and Lashley and Ron Simmons and whoever else, in that he's not this all-American football player who we're pushing as like the next Tony Atlas and all that. He was his own thing. He was more like an everyman. Yeah. So I wrote that, like, people really loved it. I wrote about Jim Cornette making fried chicken jokes on NWA, but the point that I made was Jim Cornette shouldn't be fired for being old racist Jim Cornette. Management should look at themselves for letting like this pass on a tape show. Like, yo, you had to see it. You could have cut it. You know what I'm saying? Like, so
make it make sense.
That's when, like, I think the conversation started to become layered because, they was calling me all kinds of names off of that, but not understanding my point. Like, again, because they were like, you can't say that about Jim Cornette. Jim Cornette's been doing, but I was like, none of this was disrespectful to Jim Cornette. He is who he is at this point. Right. It's like the point is larger. And so, they were really seeing that. So what I didn't realize was, and again, this is just the writing. It's kind of hard to talk about all at once. I didn't realize I had eyes on me other places. I'm just doing what I'm doing, So the night after we go to Comic-Con PR, and we have dinner that night. That's the most amazing dinner. That was it was crazy. My best friend had passed away like 6-7 months before that. And it had been rough, but I get to New York and it's love like from every direction. And even that night, I got an ex-girlfriend and love her to death. Never say a bad word about her. Dated for a very long time. She called me when we were at that restaurant looking up through the skylights. And I just had a moment. I was like, because and again, I never say a bad word about her. Squeezing a compliment out of that woman ain't nothing harder in the whole world. But it was like, wow, like I'm where I'm supposed to be. This is really crazy.
I love that.
Yeah.
It was really cool. So the next day, I went with Faye Jackson and Lovely to Jersey because we're going to the GCW show. So we're at the GCW show and they're dope. Like, and it's funny. Now I could probably get in just off the strength of me, but Faye brought us and she was like, yeah, this is she was like, yeah, these are my friends. And he's like, okay, you're Faye's friend, you're cool. Like, thanks, Brett. Great, thanks. So we're at the show, and of course, like AJ Gray's on the show. Me and him had gotten tight over the pandemic. Alley Cat's there, and this is after I'd written about Alley Cat. I still got my mom framed my magazine article about Cat.
Oh my god,
that's lovely. I love that.
Really cool. So, it's all love there. But we're watching one of the matches, and there's like this, some kind of Middle Eastern, Arabian, Italian, something or other dude next to me with this long curly hair, and Lovely's talking to him. And so we're all like kicking and standing there. I look at him and say, wait, you're Sparks. And he was like, yeah, Cam. And so like, are cool. So fast forward to next April, and Sparks hits me. He's like, "Yo, Cam, are you coming to WrestleMania in Dallas?" And I was like, "Yeah." And at this point, like, all right, so WWE used to give Pro Wrestling Torch one media pass for WrestleMania. You get one. And Travis, and I love you to death, Travis would just take it, but Travis wouldn't like go to the convention to do the interviews. Like, are we allowed to curse on here?
Yes.
You motherfucker. How dare you make me a rich go do all the work and you just gonna go to the show. Okay, whatever. But they used to give us one. So I was the only one going to Dallas, and so I had to pass, but I also was like working. Like I did Conrad's, Jeff Hardy, Jeff Jarrett, Ric Flair, Conrad, Eric Bischoff. I did that show, and Brian Waters was there. That's the first time I met Brian in person.
Shout out to Hollywood.
We love you, Brian.
Hollywood.
Shout out to Hollywood.
So I'm out there working, but we do the Wale Mania thing. So I show up, and it's me, Sparks, my man Courtney. We're all having dinner, and Sparks is like, "Yo, I got your dinner." I was like, "I don't like how they're saying. Why you got my dinner?" And he was like, "Yo, I'm gonna need your help." And so that's when I find out I'm doing like all the stuff at the show. So I get there. I'm moving chairs. I'm setting up bottles. I'm doing all that. And Shoemaker and Kaz are working on something. And Shoemaker looks at me, and he's like, "Yo, do I know you?" I'm like, "No, I don't think so. Like, what's up? How you doing?" So I just keep going. I'm doing what I'm doing. And he's like, "Wait a minute, I know you." He's like, "You're Ceehawk." And I was like, "Yeah." He was like, "You have the best wrestling Twitter." So I was like, "Oh shit, okay, all right, yeah." So that weekend goes great. Everybody's like cool in the gang. So then literally a year ago last week, Cal DMs me. And he's like, "Yo, Ceehawk, like we never been formally introduced." I was like, "Hey man, how you doing? I'm a big fan. Like I know you was over there like doing work at Complex, because like all these guys like him, Kaz, Shoemaker, Sparks, and Hale. I worship Andreas Hale. He's amazing.
The best, seriously.
But we like Cal's like we never formally met. And he's like, "Yeah, but your name comes up a lot in the circles I'm moving." I was like, "I hope it's all good. Like you never know." He's like, "No, it's good." He's like, "So, what's your situation at Pro Wrestling Torch?" And I wanted to say, well, all due respect, I'm not gonna do money talk. Okay, let me just say, it was very easy for me to say I can do what you need me to do. Okay. But I told him, I was like, I'm not like signed over there. I don't got a contract. Like, I do stuff for him. And he was like, "So how would you like to come write for us at the Ringer?" And I was like Shea Serrano's Ringer? Like, what? And so I'm kind of like, "Yeah, sure. What you need me to do?" He's like, "Yeah, so, we write and we, typically our articles are this many words and we pay this much." I'm like, you pay how much? I thought I misheard him. So I was like, "No, okay, yeah, I would love to do that." He's like, "All right, HR is going to hit you in like a day." HR hits me, a lady hits me. She's like, "Yeah, we pay this much." I was like, "You pay how much to write about wrestling?" So I tell you what, as soon as I signed that paper, but digitally, I called Rick. I said, "Rick, I got to talk to you right now." And he's like, "Yo, what's up, Cam?" I'm like, "Yo, they just hired me at the Ringer and I got to interview you and what I got to do." And he was like, "I'll hit you back in 3 minutes." 3 minutes.
Love it. I love it.
He texted me and he was like, "Yo, Cam, this is Danny. He's our media guy at AEW. Let's set it up." And there we were. And, all due respect to the writers who work really hard, me and Rick met, it's almost 2 years ago. And so we had been cool, like hanging out, just like talking, so I feel like I've been writing that story for a year and a half before I had written it. You know what I mean? Like that was already in play. And from there, man, it was, Rick, I'll love him forever for giving me that shot. Me and him are still tight to this day.
That was a really good article, though. That was a really, really good, great article on
because I listen. It's something that I've always been like attention to detail person when I'm with somebody.
Yeah.
Like when we're interacting, it's always been that. But with him, what was really different was we exist on the same social plane when he's not absolute. You know what I mean? We just be out there kicking it. So it was really easy to, and we have similar stories, similar experiences. Upbringing has similar things to it. So it was easy, man. It was easy to really get to the center of what I thought he was trying to present to the world, and that's always been my thing. What's the story that they're trying to tell? What got them to the point where they're telling that story? And, it hasn't been difficult because I know who my audience is, one, I'm writing for Cal. I'm writing to literally impress Cal. But, I think that when we get together and we kick it like Krista, we were at whatever that restaurant is that I went to 25 times in LA.
Yeah, after
The
It was
chicken
after Raw,
spot?
right?
no, it was a bar restaurant thing right after Raw. We were
Yeah.
there.
So
Yeah.
it's me, you, it's Candace Cordelia. I think Nikki's there, and my man Christian and Issa was there, NYC Demon Diva. And I'm like, no, this is my audience. Like the people I sit down and kick it with. This is who I'm talking to. Like, I'm not writing for dude, sitting in, the big armchair in the CEO's office. Like, I'm writing for us. I'm writing like we're kicking it. And so when I talk about, this obscure piece of art that Rick might like, when I'm talking about how important it was to Mello to be able to like look at the camera. When I'm talking about like Tony Storm's real desire to make the division matter. Like, those are conversations that we're already having all the time.
Right.
Anybody can tell you favorite match, favorite wrestler, finishing move. That's not difficult. And there are some people who are very good at it, but my thing has always been like, even since I was with the Torch, I taught myself Photoshop because I felt like I had to be doing something that nobody else was doing. So I felt like I belonged. Like, that's always my thing. What am I doing that's going to stand the test of time? Right. How am I going to make sure you need me? It's fun because I'm always trying to find a new way to tell the story to keep everybody interested. And it's been good because I really care. Like, I want Reasonable Doubt's my favorite album, right? I'm so New York. I'm not even.
I love that.
Everybody loves Reasonable Doubt.
And the biggest thing Jay-Z said was I wasn't writing this to sell out concerts. I was writing to impress my friends. My closest friends don't give a damn about wrestling, but like when they read what I write, they're like, yo, that jumps out. That's how you write a profile on somebody. That's how you tell their story. So yeah, man, I'm just I pay attention to detail. I can be obscure, but also relatable with the stuff I talk about, I think. And that's what makes it stick.
And I appreciate your perspective because you're also like a person of color. Like from that perspective, like anyone could have written that Kofi article, but from that angle, but it was so much more coming from you and in those spaces. Authentic. Right. And talking to Andreas Hale, like it's the same thing. He's existing in these white spaces, writing about combat sports and wrestling, and having you guys in those rooms to where like a shoemaker would be like, oh yeah, like there's a reason why people are approaching you to write for them. And I appreciate what you do in the space because I love the range, like how I discovered your profile and now like to what you're actually doing. You're telling these important stories that, like you said, these profiles are gonna live the test of time, and a lot of editorials don't do that anymore.
That's true.
Like I was like a magazine head, so when I read your stuff, that reminds me of like the feature articles that I would look forward to to reading growing up. And to add that magic to wrestling, like, and I just been having a moment because hip hop turned 50 and just how important the culture is in wrestling, like learning that. So I just been like having a moment like you had like in New York where it's just like, this is exactly what I'm supposed to be doing. Like we're supposed to be in these spaces telling these stories. So I appreciate, everything that you do in those spaces.
Yeah, I think and to go back to like your question about like existing in them, like me and Rick linked up on some, hey, I'm in town this weekend. I know you typically hang out at this spot. I want to go kick it there. Let's kick it. When I met Mello in Dallas, like, I'm going up to him to say what's up. Like, I'm a fan. And he came up to me and he was like, yo, like, it's the older me. And I was like, oh shit, okay. So you can follow it along. You know what I'm saying? So
I can see that.
And we got real cool off that. Like, it was so cool. Great American Bash was here 3 weeks ago. And so I hit him because it was the Crawford Spence fight. And I'm at the sneaker shop in the middle of the city watching it. They had a fight party. I'm like, yo, Mello, we watching the fight. Like, I don't know what you got going on. He was like, yo, I'm in the hotel. I'm going to get a lift in and I'm going to get ready for the match tomorrow, but I appreciate it. He's like, you going to be there, right? I said, yeah. So they had the match, him and Dragunov smoke it. He came up to me afterwards, sweaty as any person's ever been, gives me a big hug. It's like, I told you, Cam, I told you. And I was like, okay, see, like it's, I went to University of Texas at Austin. back when UT was 1% black, and that's including the athletes, right? So like you were cool with all the athletes, not because you was cool, but because y'all are all y'all got. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like me and PJ Tucker like used to kick it hard our first semester. Me and Vince Young became tight, like, you know, during the national championship time. So like I still see Vince out now, and it's love, and you know, we kick it a little bit. You know, my man Twin is one of the Cupcake guys. So you know that show that they have, like him and a couple of ex-NFL guys. And so I've been around people like me and Kevin Durant used to ride the bus together. You know what I mean? Like I'm around these people who we knew were going to be super successful. So I'm not weird around the wrestlers. You know what I'm saying? Because like I've been in this situation since I was 17. But like I'll say that to say, you talk about hip hop being 50. You should have seen me when I met Elliot Wilson at Wale Mania.
Me too. I was like, no, he tweeted that he was going to be there, and I was like, oh my God.
Yes. Like that's the first picture I posted from.
I had that experience with Elliot Wilson on somebody's red carpet.
Yeah.
So once he was like, Krista, Elliot Wilson, he low-key remembered me because of my job. And he's like, oh yeah, I remember or whatever. So then when we were going to the press room, I think it was like night 1 or night 2. And we just like, he literally just gave me a hug and a kiss on the way to the press room. So hip hop turning 50, being in them spaces, making hip hop a thing. And now we're in these spaces where we see hip hop and wrestling collide in ways that has never been done before. Like, every now and again, you'll see your occasional rapper perform or your occasional whoever perform. But to have Snoop Dogg in the Hall of Fame,
right,
on top of him just being in the Bronx doing his set at Yankee Stadium, it's just like, it's two different worlds that you would never thought would ever.
And that's why I love Wale Mania, because I when I first heard, like, I was like, this can't be real. This can't be a hip hop concert / party / wrestle. Like it was like a dream come true. And to think like that's the place, just to tell you how hip hop culture is, that's the place where everyone feels comfortable. That's the place where all wrestlers and every promotion can go to and have fun. That's the place where media, fans, everyone lets loose and kicks off WrestleMania weekend. And that's off the culture.
Yeah. And again, like more people who look like us are wrestlers now. There are more of them that are in position to be champions and to be featured acts, you know? And so like me and Solo are tight now and talk from time to time. Like, and he don't even talk. You know what I'm saying? But so much of it was like, you know, of course that family has been successful and they done been in so many green rooms and VIPs and all that, but like not like we was kicking it. You know what I'm saying? Like we really like are cool and like, you know, I'm out there. We do the Wale Mania thing, take care of everybody. The next day, like I see Naomi showing love, and like a bunch of like the cousins who was in there. They see me at WrestleCon. They're like, "What's up, baby? What's up with the bottles?" You know, like, but like and listen, I tell them this. I got a couple of guys specifically, like my man Sean Radican at PW Torch. He has been covering your Ring of Honors and your PWGs and whatever small promotions in America forever. And I tell Sean, I said, Sean, you know, as hard as you work, and you know, I love everything you ever made. Part of the reason why I try to navigate these rooms and show respect and tell these stories the right way is because, like, you know, they didn't had so many white guys do it. Even the ones who are really, really good might not ever get that shot. You know what I mean? And so I do understand, as much as things have shifted, some of that does work in our favor because people are more comfortable talking to us, being around us. They know what we stand for. They know we're not trying to disrespect them. They know we're not trying to come up off their name, like nothing like that, right? So a big part of it is like, I didn't know I was old until I was old, but I don't mind being wrestling uncle. You know what I mean? Like, I don't mind that. I'm okay with being that, you know? It's a young man's game, but for right now, a slightly older man and older women are telling those stories. But I love it, man. I do love it. Like, you know, I got MJF coming up, and I think that is a super important story to tell, because he puts his all into it, and he does deal with some things that I've never had to deal with. You know what I mean? Because like, keep it 100, like, that's my man. We talked about racism. We talked about a couple of Twitter conversations that maybe could have been more clear. But I approach it from a standpoint like, you my man. I feel like I know what you stand for. We've had this conversation outside of what's in the transcript, so let's try to tell this the right way. You know what I mean? And it's a situation where he trusts me because he knows what I'm about. You know what I mean? It would be so easy, and I don't know why people do it, but it would be easy to make enemies out of people who are more famous than you for clout.
Yeah.
It would be so easy. And so many people who I think could be a lot further along in media jump to that because it's the easy thing to do.
1,000%.
And it's like, yo, you don't do that in your real life. Why are you doing it now?
Yo, that is such a good point. And your clapbacks are always good because it's really just be real shit.
Yeah.
Like, no, like when did I say that? When did I do that? Like, I have to sometimes when I'm at work, I'm like, you know what? Let me log off Twitter because I gotta follow the thread.
Yeah.
Or how did this start? What tweet
Yeah.
did this start? But I do appreciate just going to wrestling Twitter. I want to lighten it up. Because it's a crazy place, but again, we've met some of the most amazing people. Like, I was able to meet you. You had talked about Diva Stan Twitter.
Yeah.
How would you divide the different wrestling Twitter little worlds?
So, I mean, the largest two segments, you have AEW stands and WWE stands. Absolutely ridiculous people on both sides. And like, it's okay to not watch one or not watch the other, right? But the arguments that people have because of somebody else's, like, desire not to consume that stuff is ridiculous. But you got those two. You definitely got, like, New Japan Twitter, a smaller segment, but they are so dedicated. You got Spreadsheet Wrestling Twitter.
Oh,
let's talk about these 5-star matches.
The things that we loathe.
Spreadsheets.
Yeah, Spreadsheet Wrestling Twitter. They hate me, boy. I don't love the technical aspects. You got European Wrestling Twitter. We don't click. We don't click at all. Because
You've probably seen everything in the belly of the beast of wrestling Twitter.
They are rude. You got Diva Stan Twitter who, like, I appreciate that they have different heroes. Like, one thing that was really important to me, and I've always prided myself on being like a very open-minded person, right? But one thing that was really important to me, and I really had to understand, like, gay wrestling Twitter has different heroes.
That was a thing.
Yeah.
Not saying that it's not out there because we know we have gay wrestlers.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know that they were so active on Twitter. I haven't yet to come across it, but I know now that I'll be talking about it, my Twitter's probably going to have all of them populated because they listen.
Yeah, I think a lot of it too. There's a lot of crossover with like Diva Stan Twitter. But like Billy Dixon has taught me about wrestlers I never knew and about why they're important. You know what I mean? And so, like, I was one of the people who, like, when people were like, yo, Alicia Fox is a legend, I was like, man, what are you talking about? But I looked at it and I was like, I'm not the one audience for wrestling. You know what I mean? And she's important to different people for different reasons, You got Can't Read Wrestling Twitter. My favorite.
That's majority.
And that's majority of Twitter. Like, they don't care. They've decided on a few words and they're gonna rock with it, right?
Yeah, they don't read through.
Yeah. You got Smart Mouth White Boy Twitter.
Oh, we love those. I personally love those.
I like it when they're not talking to me. Because, like,
right.
I'll make a comment about a wrestler and then they'll say something really slanderous about the wrestler. And I'm just like, why do you have to include me in this? Why can't you say that on your time? Like, I don't want no part of this. And, like, like, they talk about people I'm cool with in my mentions sometimes. I just be like, leave conversation. And I just keep it going. Leave conversation is the best thing to ever happen to social media because you ain't got to see it no more. But yeah, those are the main branches of it. Those are the main branches, and they're all great and ridiculous in one way or another. So yeah,
that's absolutely true. So before we wrap up, because it's been amazing talking to you, what has been your favorite interview thus far?
Again, Rick's a cheat code because like that was extending a conversation that I've had before, right? Booker T was really interesting because I didn't put out the podcast, but I warmed him up really quickly because one of my college roommates was really good friends with his son. And he told me a story about them going to Booker T's house with another guy one time and him not knowing Booker T was Brandon's dad. So he just stares at him and Booker T's like, yo, get the fuck out of my house for being weird. And I told Book that story and he just starts laughing because, not everybody knows. Like 4 people in the world know that story. Yeah. And then I told him one of his students, Hyon, she's on ROH, and her husband, Stephen Wolf, they do a lot of the motion capture for the 2K games. Me and my old lady went to brunch with them last September, and Hyon tells me the story about his Wi-Fi password being fuck Buff Bagwell.
Oh my.
So I asked him if that was true, and again, he just busts out laughing. He's like, that is not true. That's my man. And so it was really fun watching him warm up after I know he's done 4, 5, 6 interviews. And so that got to be really loose. I really, really enjoyed talking to Jake the Snake Roberts just because we talked about that earlier. Addiction is something I'm very familiar with, something that runs in my family. And so listening to him on the back end of that is great. Man, Bryan Danielson was amazing. And that was more, Bryan, you got the mic. Just go. And he just talked for an hour. You know what I'm saying? Like, that was really cool. I'm feeling him out. So those have been really, really fun. Of course, like Lita, one of those youth crushes. And her being really endearing. So it goes back and forth, man. But I'll tell you this. My favorite was Dax Harwood. Because, again, you try to find the commonalities between people, right? Even though Dax is a bald white man from North Carolina, the thing that me and Dax really connected on, we're both kids who graduated college into a recession. And so you grow up, they tell you that going to college means you're going to make 6 figures and be successful. All you got to do is go to college.
That's the biggest lie told.
Yeah, they don't tell you how the world works. And so knowing that, how much that molded me in, like, if I had graduated college, let's say 5 years earlier, I might not be making content because it might not be important to me trying to get a piece of this world that don't exist to everybody, right? But Dax was the same way. Scratched and clawed, found out what he was good at. And I tell you what, when that boy cut that interview to talk to his wife about what they were getting for dinner, I never respected nobody more. Because it wasn't like, hey, I have to go, we have to figure out dinner. That man talked to that woman with the most love I ever heard somebody have in a voice, And so, like, I don't know if, me and Dax are ever going to sit in the room listening to the same music. We might be drinking the same scotch, but, it was again, finding that commonality with somebody and understanding what drives them and them talking about the people who put them in position. His parents weren't together. They basically split around the same time mine did. But you know what? They put every cent they had together to make sure that boy finished college. Like, it was, again, the commonalities I found out I had with somebody I did not know I had anything in common with, and hearing him tell that story was amazing. So, yeah, Dax is the one, man. Dax is the one that sticks out. And after I wrote it, him and Mello specifically, Rick ain't reach out and say, thank you for telling my story, Cam. He just said, where we going Saturday? It wasn't that. But Dax was like, yo, I have this forever. Somebody cared enough about me to write this, and I have this to share with my family. So it was really important. So, yeah, man, that's Dax Harwood is the one, man. That's a good dude.
I love that. Who's your dream interview?
I was just about to ask that. Say out my head, girl.
I mean, I can't interview Scott Hall. Like, that's, that doesn't get to happen. In wrestling, I don't know if there still is one. I've once you get to like Danielson, I did Steve Austin.
Yeah.
That's like,
No, you can scream, P. Go ahead. It's okay.
I did.
Yeah, Steve Austin, man. That was crazy. Where, we spent a good portion of my youth living 30 minutes from each other. And so first thing we talk about is how my homegirl Beth Taylor used to go kick it on his property. you know, and so he just
At
laughed
Steve
about how small the
Austin's
world is.
house?
Yeah, yeah.
Oh.
Because you know, I'm from San Antonio. I knew some country white girls. They used to be out there on their property kicking it.
Can't.
But yeah. I don't want to interview Rock, and it's no disrespect to Rock, but you know the answers you're gonna get, you know, and that
Yeah,
ain't
he's very
that ain't a
hot,
bad
very
thing, you know. I talked to
I feel
Kofi.
like he's very safe.
PR.
Yeah, he's very safe.
Very
safe.
PR'd.
Like, if you was
Yeah.
to like really, and I love The Rock, clearly,
Mhm.
like he upped it all the way
Yeah,
up
that's the
there.
man. But you know what's funny?
Very safe.
Who is that over your right shoulder, PR?
On my right shoulder?
Mhm.
Brett?
Further.
Paige?
That's who that. Oh, that's Paige there?
Yeah, that's Paige.
Okay,
yeah.
see, my actual dream interview is Victoria.
I thought that was Victoria this whole time.
Oh, really?
It don't look like Paige. It looks like Victoria.
Victoria is my real first wrestling crush that I'd never let go of. I met her at Comic-Con one year and we were supposed to do something through the torch, didn't get to do it. But outside of her being like my crush, she's also like, that's the first woman I saw wrestle and was like, no, she got it. Like,
So
like she
underrated.
not, you know, and it's no disrespect to what the times were, but like this ain't no diva. This is a wrestler. You know what I'm saying? So I think that would be a really fun conversation.
I would love to see. I would love to read something like that from you.
The women are always interesting, like because they're fighting a different battle. You know, Toni Storm was fighting uphill at that point. I think she's in a great position now. Lita was fighting her whole career. And you know, I did not ask about it because we were talking about something very specific, but she done fought more battles than she should have had to.
1,000%.
Because if you flip a lot of the situation she was in, flip that around to a man don't get punished. You know what I mean? And so I think that's a conversation to have. I do not think that this was the platform to have it, but I'd love to really get into that, you know. But yeah, I think Victoria's up there. As far as like male wrestlers, it sounds unfair, but I didn't really got to talk to everybody. You know, like
I mean, once you put the Stone Colds and the Brian Danielsons up there, it's hard to.
Do you think you would want to interview Mark Briscoe?
Yeah. Again, authenticity. Like he would be a fun conversation. The reason I would slow down, I knew the Briscoes. I did not watch a lot, and so I don't know if I could do him justice before going back and really looking at what he's done. You know what I mean? He would be fun. I think I like that I caught Max at he's gonna get better, he's gonna get more famous, but I caught him, you know, going into the biggest match of his career. You know, Adam Cole, it was kind of a toss-up between the two of them for this thing that we're doing for All In. I think he's great. I really met him for the first time at Wale Mania, and we kicked it and we're laughing all night, like we were best friends. And I think it's Adam Cole. That's cool.
Adam Cole is super nice.
He is so nice.
I think I would have liked to have caught Kevin Nash a couple of years earlier. You know, once tragedy strikes, it affects the conversations that you can have.
Absolutely.
And so I don't know if I would want to talk to Kevin Nash about Scott Hall in the way I want to, knowing he's dealt with so much loss recently, you know.
And his son.
No, that's what I'm saying. So
yeah,
I don't know if I want to have the one conversation knowing the conversation's changed.
Yeah, but also the conversation could change. You could probably get something real raw out of him that he's never given.
I agree. I think I would want more time to pass.
Yeah,
you
absolutely.
know, like I would want that to sit. But yeah, like I've talked to Big E, not for the Ringer or an interview, but me and Big E walked out of a dinner one time to sit down and talk for 30 minutes. You know what I mean? So I've talked to Kofi. I think Lashley would be really interesting because you got to talk about why he left and what he learned, and that's like a fun convo, right? Man, I've been so blessed being in the position I'm in. Like I'm talking to D-Lo tomorrow about the Nation. You know, like all the stuff. Like, okay, Rey Mysterio. It's Rey.
That's a good one
because I think that Rey, he doesn't get his just due. And I don't know if anybody's ever tried to have the kind of conversation I'd want to have with him about really being the godfather of all this. You know, like we don't have name a wrestler under 200 pounds right now that you think is dope. We don't have him or her if we don't have Rey Mysterio.
That's true.
That is so
They're
true.
not in the position they are without Rey Mysterio. Rey Mysterio changed the game almost 30 years ago, and I still don't feel like we're talking about it enough. You know,
That's
so,
true.
yeah.
Even with the Hall of Fame induction, even with what he like him just winning the United States champion, even all of that, like
Yeah.
it's like when you mention Ray, it automatically goes to Eddie.
Yeah. Yeah. And
And
again, I
doesn't
can't interview Eddie,
stand
you know?
right. And Ray doesn't. It's not like he can't stand on his own, but people don't
Mm-hmm.
want to see him stand on his own. Like in
Yeah.
that light, you want to go to Ray and Eddie's feud,
Mhm.
or Ray and Eddie being the best of friends, and they automatically go to that last time Ray saw Eddie before Eddie's passing.
I'd love to do okay, so like it blanked my mind, but it's literally the most in-depth one that I've done. Bianca, man. Bianca was like we the same dinner me and Big E walked out of. It's WWE's NIL dinner, private thing at a closed restaurant. We're downstairs with like and also let me sneak it in real quick while I'm telling the story. MVP, I think really, if you saw the way that Mello and Trick and Dala and Ashanti and Omos look at MVP when he talks, it's absolute reverence. Like to go from prison to where he is and how much people love him, that's a story that needs to be told. But so Bianca, we're at the dinner. I had never met her. We're all sitting at the same table. Me, my old lady, two execs, two college kids, and Bianca. And we're talking. I'm soaking up game. Like I'm listening to her. I'm watching how she interacts with people, how she's slow to talk, but really like listens.
Because she's very attentive.
Yeah, very much so.
Attentive.
So
Like
then we go to then it's my time to interview her before Mania. One, she knows who I am. Two,
you gotta stop saying that. Everybody knows who you are.
it's weird though. It's still like cool. But two, the first thing I ask her, who was the first person to beat you in a race? And she's like, she stops for a second and she just starts talking for 15 minutes about this situation. And she's like, yo, her name is Janae, and she smoked me, and I had never lost a race, and I wanted to quit track, and I left.
But
for
she
a
was
while.
like 5 or 12 or something.
That's the story. So I'm like, yo, how old were you when you did this? Like 13, 14? She was like, I was 5. I was like, oh, who you are. So then me being me, I get Janae's first and last name and I look her up on the internet and she's like a big time lawyer in Tennessee. And so that's why I ran down everything about who she was when I started it, you know? And so then we get to media at WrestleMania night 2. We had just dropped the article. Like as we're walking up to the hotel, I give it to Bianca. She reads that first paragraph and sends it to her homegirl. So like she's fun because again, there's a level of detail that I feel like I can talk about when I'm talking to like athletes, like former athletes, to where like I've seen so many of them who are about to blow that I think I know how their brain works, and so it's a super fun interview. But that's one of the dream ones that's done. You know, maybe I can do it again later, but I felt like to get the totality of what somebody's trying to present, that's the one. It was great. She was amazing.
I love that one. I think honestly, I think we mentioned it at the press thing. You kind of skipped us because we skipped everybody else too when we got there. And it was just like, hold on.
Yeah.
Can I show you this? Yeah, like I love talking to her. I was able to reach out to her right before the pandemic, right before she was still in NXT around this time. I was doing a Black representation piece for Hot 97, bringing that part of wrestling to hip hop, and that's how I was connected with her. And like breaking the ice is very important because Naomi, she was actually scared. And I was like, girl, I just want to let you know right now, besides the Hot 97 stuff, I'm one half of those wrestling girls. You retweeted us, you listened to the whole episode. When we knew you listened to it, because something that I said or that P said was at the very ending of that episode, and she retweeted it.
Hey.
So once I got that out the way, definitely broke that ice. I still have that interview recorded, like on my phone. And then that's how we connected with Mia Yim, and that's how we was able to have Bianca on more times throughout the pandemic, because it's just so refreshing to speak to her and talk to her. And like you said, she is very attentive. Like she does answer slow because she's listening.
Yeah.
to every word that we're saying. And she wants to make sure that she puts out the best answer, but the most realist answer
Yeah.
as well.
Yeah, man, she was fantastic for sure, for sure.
Yeah.
Well, Cam, it's been a pleasure you having us here. I mean, you having us here. We having you here. I'm sorry.
Oh, it's been great, for sure.
It's been a pleasure. Where can everybody find you?
Yeah, for sure. If you want to see me deal with headaches daily, on Twitter, it's Ceehawk, Ceehawk. Same thing on Instagram. As far as the work goes, primarily at The Ringer, theringer.com. Just search the name Cameron Hawkins. One of the most fun things I've got to do, I have a lot of journalism students. And so like now I get to be like, so like, what do you want to do? Like, oh, I want to do creative writing and I want to talk about this and entertainment. And I'm like, oh, like, just as we're talking, like if we're on like Zoom, I just put like my link in the chat. They're like, yo, we write for The Ringer. I'm like, yeah. So that's always been cool.
Love
so
that.
The Ringer, I've been doing a lot of work lately with Fightful, Great American Bash, Tiffany Stratton, Steve Austin. Got something coming up. Got two things coming up with them. One's like a video game that I got sent to do a review on. The other, I'm really working on this thing with D'Lo Brown. Pro Wrestling Illustrated. You can find me in there. I've done two things with them. Article on Alley Cat a few years back. Last year, I did a piece on High On and Rachel Rose, two top-notch independent Texas wrestlers called Hearts of Texas. You can find a lot of work that I've done previously at Pro Wrestling Torch. Was part of the Pro Wrestling Torch East Coast cast weekly for about 10 years. So if you want to hear 500 plus episodes of me talking about the week in wrestling, that's going to be on there. By the time you hear this, new Ceehawk merch for your wear. Yeah, the same company.
Hey.
Yeah, shout out to the homies, right? Same company that does all your favorite creators merch. We got two designs coming out. She's like, me, Krista. Got my Bass Pro Shop hat inspired t-shirt, so you can imagine how that looks. And then of course we had to do the Cam She-Hulk shirt because like those big strong ladies. That's gonna be fun. But yeah. So a little bit of everything, working on that. That's almost it. Couple of episodes of House of Wrestling, my man Nick Hausman. Just trying to do a little bit of everything because you never know, man. When one of these things is gonna pop, it might actually be the thing. But I don't know, man. It's been the thing. Like I talk about writing for The Ringer, guys. Like I had lunch with Shea Serrano and his wife a couple of weeks back. Like I have Shea Serrano's book on my coffee table, and like we go get pizza now when I'm in town. Like this has been a crazy run. That's really, the last year has been cool. But like we said, we've kicked it. PR, we've been in rooms together, trying to navigate them, trying to make this thing, trying to normalize it, trying to make it regular, but also trying to put forth the very best foot. And man, I've been given a lot of opportunities, and I feel like I've at least base hit most of them. So yeah.
Love to hear it. P, let everyone know where they can find you.
At Those Wrestling Girls. Follow us.
And Queen PR 3, Queen 3.
I mean, they watch our show. I think they know where to follow.
But we don't know who Cam follows. And, he got a whole fan base too now. So we got to, let them know where we can, But also, like P said, make sure you do follow us on all platforms, Those Wrestling Girls, on Twitter, Patreon, YouTube, Twitch, Instagram, TikTok. You can follow me, Miss_Krista B_ on Instagram and Miss_Krista B on Twitter. Just please make sure you stay tuned. Be on the lookout for this episode because this is a good one. You guys don't want to miss it. Cam, thank you again for joining us. We love to have you on again for sure. You're definitely family. You can't go nowhere. You stuck with us, and that's it. And on that note, it's your girl Krista B with Queen P.R. Oh, I'm sorry, babe.
Okay.
And the wonderful and talented Cam Ceehawk, and we are out of here. Hey, what's up, y'all? It's your girl, Krista B, one half of Those Wrestling Girls, and I just want to say thank you for tuning in to another dope episode of Those Wrestling Girls. Please make sure that you tune in and you follow us on everywhere we are. We are on Twitch, we are on Patreon, YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, TikTok. Please make sure you follow and subscribe. And as always, we love and appreciate you, and we can't wait to see you for the next episode. On that note, it's your girl Krista B, and I'm out of here. Bye.
Queen P.R, Krista B, those wrestling girls, TWG, Black Excellence, making it effortless, podcast bringing up women and wrestling. Let's go.